Hello everybody, it's Paul Driscoll here from the RGDS show, and this is just a bonus video of the top 100 Amiga platform games. I thought it'd be fun to go through because the Amiga had so many unique platform games you don't see elsewhere, and they're worth a play today. I mean, they might be a little rough and ready compared to some of the console examples, but because a lot of them only appeared on the Amiga or Atari ST, they will have passed a lot of people by. So I think it's a worthwhile list, and I'd love to hear your thoughts of what you would have chosen. Okay, let's go to number 100 on our list, and it's PP Hammer and his Pneumatic weapon. This came out in 1991 by Demonware and developed by Travelling Bits. In this massive platform game, PP can drill his way through the levels, mixing in Splunky style gameplay with Rick Dangerous. This is an engaging adventure full of secrets and definitely worth a playthrough. Okay, we're coming up to number 99, and this is Hoi, or you could do the Hoi remix. It came out in 1992 by Hollyware, and it's done by Team Hoi. I've chosen Hoi, but really maybe Hoi Remix, which was the 1993 game that came out on AGA machines only. That's the 1200 machine. It is a public domain game, and it's a bright, coloured, basic platformer, but it has this cute dinosaur, and while the gameplay is tough, it is also compelling and addictive. There's just something charming about this game, and that's why it made my list. Okay, we come on to 98, and this is Oscar. Came out in 1993 by Flare and developed in-house. Now, it's made by the same team who did Trolls, and it has the cool premise of each level themed around a movie genre, and that's, to be honest, why it appears on my list. It stars a chipmunk with a yo-yo as a weapon, and this game should have been an all-out classic. Unfortunately, it's got poor level design that lets the whole gameplay down. That's why it's so low down on my list, but I still am drawn to this game because I think the cute graphics and just seeing the cartoon version of the Xenomorph is worth it alone. Right, okay, we're coming up to 97, and I've chosen Unreal. This came out in 1990 by Ubisoft and Audi Logic Systems. These are the people that eventually changed their name and went on to do games like Agony and things like that. This is early form. It's not to the Agony level, but it's a nice platform game with levels where you're a dragon, like in Space Harrier levels, but also the platform affair. It's beautiful and it's unique to the Amiga, and that's why it's made my list. I think it's worth people sort of like diving in and discovering. Okay, we come up to 96, and I have chosen Entity. Released in 1993 by Loracell, and it's another one developed in-house. Now sure, the leather-clad woman not wearing much up against dinosaurs sold me as a teenage boy, but actually going back to this game, it's pretty solid gameplay-wise, and I think it deserves an inclusion on the list. I have a lot of fun going back to this. It's not all about scantily clad women. Trust me. Okay, we're coming up to 95, and maybe this is one that people feel should be higher up the list. I do love it, but I think it gets a little bit samey. What is it? It's Fuzzball. Came out in 1991 by System 3 and developed by Scan Games. It's a bubble style adventure. The controls get a little getting used to, but stick with it and you'll have another enjoyable platformer to cherish on the Amiga. Okay, we're coming up to 94, and I've chosen Odyssey. This came out very late on the Amiga in 1995 and was published by Audiogenics and developed by Unconscious Minds. Now, this is a fantastic puzzle platformer that came too late on the Amiga to make a bigger impact, but it is a mega hidden gem. I really recommend this as one that's passed a lot of people by that needs to be played today. Okay, let's come up to 93, and I've chosen the platform game GlobDoel. Now, this came out in 1993 by Psygnosis and was developed by Dynamo. You play a glob of goo, as you do, and you must slime your way through the levels, collecting fruit and avoiding traps before the time runs out. It's an enjoyable, not without its flaws, but it's one that I like to go back to. Okay, we come up to 92, and this is probably one that will annoy people being so low on the list. It is Exile. It came out in 1991 by Audiogenic and developed in-house. Here you must jetpack around the planet to discover what happened to the crew exploring this new planet. Excitement, it's got frustration and tension as it mounts, and this awesome game. It is an awesome game, it's just one that I get frustrated with, and that's why it's so low on my list. Okay, we come up to number 91, and I've chosen Jimmy's Fantastic Journey. This came out in 1994 by Lionheart and was developed by Melon Design. It's a shareware game here, so that's like public domain, but they encouraged people to pay a little bit of money to get the full game. And it's one that most people would never have heard of. You have a chewing gum attack and lots of cool ideas here. It is really tough, but it's an enjoyable gem that's probably not been played by even Amiga aficionados, so this is well worth tracking it down. And then we come to number 90, Traps and Treasures. This came out in 1993 by Chrysalis and was developed by Nightingale. You are Captain Flynn and your crew has been kidnapped, so it's up to you to rescue them all. This is a delightful platform gem. Never gets talked about today. In fact, you know, on a different day this should be much higher up my list. I love the characterizations, all the enemies. It's got so much humour and wonderment to the sprite work. So give this one a go today. Right, we're on to 89 now, and it's Morph. Released in 1993 by Millennium and developed by Flare. It's another Flare game, and this has you accidentally turned into 4 elements as in an experiment, and so becomes a sort of puzzle platformer with our hero using these limited number of forms that they can become of water, cloud, bouncing ball and heavy ball to make his way through the level. It's a fun puzzle platformer, mixing in elements of Lemmings with platforming, and it's one that I have a lot of time for. Okay, we're on to number 88, and this is Kid Gloves 2. Released in 1992, again by Millennium, and developed by Digital Magic. Now, originally this was called Little Bow, but the Digital Magic team went bankrupt, and so when Millennium bought up the item, they decided to slap on the Kid Glove platform name to try and give this an increase in sales. It plays like Wonder Boy. It's essentially a Wonder Boy clone, and it's pretty good. It's one that I've always been drawn to. Okay, we're on to number 87, and for this I would choose Katum. This came out in 1992 by Global Software and developed by Prestige. This is another hidden gem on the Amiga. You run around, you catch all the monkeys before the timer runs out. Insanely cute and addictive. I have a lot of time for this one. It's a lot of fun and well worthy of playing. Okay, we're on to number 86, and for this I choose The Unusual Case of Doctor Strange, released in 1994, and it's a public domain game developed by Ian West and Jonathan Eggleton. Now, it's a great public domain game here. It mixes in Load Runner and standard platforming, and it's really, really engaging. There's also a sequel that came out in 1995 that is well worthy of your time as well. Okay, we're on number 85, and this one's probably going to annoy a lot of people that it's not higher up the list, but it came out in 1994, and it is Virgin Games published and made by developer Jaguar. It is Aladdin. Yes, the Disney Aladdin. The reason it's so low on my list is simply because it's better on the Mega Drive. The Amiga version is AGA, and it's very close, I guess, to the Mega Drive one, but I just think it's a game that's better on other systems. But having said that, it has great animation and great level design, so, you know, on another day it would be higher up my list. It's more that I feel it's not an Amiga game. Okay, now we come to 84, and this is another one that people might be surprised is so low on the list. It is Putty, released in 1992 by System 3 and developed in-house. Now, the reason that I personally put it so low on the list is I've never really rated this game. I mean, I enjoy it to a point. I just find its overuse of sound samples. The gameplay's so-so. I mean, I love the fact that it's based on Silly Putty, the original name, and, you know, that you can absorb and punch and jump your way around and rescue, kidnap people. I mean, it's got great visuals, but it's just one that I feel is a little clunky and not one that I personally enjoy. That's why it's lower on my list, but still worthy of your time. Okay, let's go on to number 83, and this is Marvin's Marvellous Adventure, released in 1994 and published by 21st Century and developed by Infernal Bytes. Now, this is really quite an impressive game. In fact, maybe if I spent a bit more time with this, it might even go higher up the list. It sports an impressive 60 levels, and this, you know, it's programmed by Factor 5 member Florian W. Sauer, and here, you know, he truly impresses. I mean, he really knew how to make the Amiga sing. It's one that I definitely want to spend a bit more time with, and I'm convinced that if I do, this would probably make the top 40. Okay, let's go on to number 82, and I've chosen Pugsy, released in 1994 by Psygnosis and developed by The Dome, although of course the original port of the Mega Drive Mega CD of this game is done by Traveller's Tales. Yes, they of Lego Games fame. I really like it. It mixes in some puzzles and some rather amazing music in the game, and it's a lot of fun and a little jaunt, although it does feel a little soulless in the looks department. It is better on the Mega CD. It is the better place to play it, really, but yeah, it had to be on the list here, so I'm happy with number 82. Okay, let's go on to number 81, and I've chosen Diddle in Space, released in 1994. It's a shareware game by Darren Ithel, probably the Diddle in Space. Now, this only cost £3.99 back in the day, and it was a sequel to Diddle in Wonderland. This is much more of a shooty affair. I mean, I was umming and ahhing whether to include it in platform, but it does have platformer elements with the shooting. But either way, this is a great game. I mean, it has amazing title music and some really solid gameplay. It's definitely one well worthy of your time. Okay, we're on to number 80, and this is another shooter more than a platformer, but it is a platformer, and that is The Killing Game Show, released in 1990 by Psygnosis and developed by Raising Hell, made of course by Martin Chudley of Raising Hell, who of course went on to found Bizarre Creations, and then they of course did the fantastic MSR game for Sega and Project Gotham series for Microsoft. But what's this game? It puts you in the style of an Ed 209 Robocop style robot, and you run around the levels making your way to find keys and open gates before the boiling liquid rises up and kills you. So Rainbow Islands with guns is the tagline. Now, it's too tough for its own good, but those up to the challenge, this is well worthy of a play. Okay, we're on to number 79 now, and it is Captain Dynamo, released in 1992 by Codemasters and developed in-house. Now, it's a simple budget platformer with some amazingly awesome in-game music that just sticks in your head, and that's probably why it appears on my list, but I do love the simplistic nature of the game. It was a budget game after all, and you just simply have to recover all the diamonds and save the day. It's great fun for a little diversion and well worthy of your time. Okay, we're on to number 78, and this is ThunderCats. Yes, ThunderCats Aho. It came out in 1989 by Elite and developed in-house, and of course based on the ThunderCats cartoon. Now, the game has admittedly very repetitive, simplistic gameplay, but there's something engaging about the game. It just calls back to arcade games like Rygar and Alter Beast and Rastan, and it does a pretty good recreation of just that one more go. Of course, it was another game that they last minute slapped on the ThunderCats license, but it's definitely worth a play. It captures Lion-O and some of the enemies, and it's an engaging arcade game on the Amiga, worthy of your time. Okay, we're on to number 77, and it is Premier. This came out in 1992 by Core Design and was developed by The Eighth Day. Yes, the team that brought us Heimdall, that RPG action game. And the game sets across 6 film stages, so it's another one sort of with film genres, and you're off to find the missing reels. It's a clunky, okay platformer, but I love the graphics. I love anything by Core Design, and it's got great music as well, so it had to meet my list, and I'm glad it's here. Okay, we're on to number 76, and it's Sink or Swim. This came out in 1993 by Zeppelin Premier and developed by Odysseus. This is perhaps more of a lemming style puzzle game than a platformer. In the game you play Kevin Codner, not Costner, but Kevin Codner, and you must help the passengers escape the sinking cruise liner. But it's got some great puzzles and it's quite addictive. It's well worthy of playing today. Okay, we're on to number 75, and it's Rolling Ronnie. This came out in 1991 by Virgin Games and developed by Touch of Magic. Here you play an errand boy, delivery clown if you will, who must deliver packages as fast as possible. It's cute and it's a lot of fun to play, and it's a very polished platformer on the game, well worthy of your time. Okay, we're on to number 74, and it is Beavers, released in 1993 by Grand Slam and developed by Arc Developments. Now, despite some forced scrolling sections that truly annoy, and annoyingly they're at the beginning, so it puts a lot of people off, this is actually a really nice platformer game, particularly when it goes off those forced scrolling sections. It's colourful and it's bright, and it's a fun little game. It's one that a lot of people need to give more time to, I think. Okay, we're on number 73, and it's a licensed game with Yogis Great Escape. Released in 1990 by Hi-Tech, which was a budget label, and developed in-house by them. And like many of the Hi-Tech budget games, it is a cookie-cutter platform. I mean, they churned them out and got them out, but they made sure they always made the characters look like their counterparts, and this is no different. Yogi looks fantastic, and you know, it's just a simple platform game about getting picnic baskets by everyone's favourite picnic snatching bear. I mean, it's cheap, it's cheerful, it's like the original budget price. I mean, it's just worth it. It does what it says on the tin. It's an enjoyable one. Okay, number 72 is Mr. Nuts Hopping Mad. This came out in 1994 by Ocean and developed by Neon. Now, this is a totally different game to the console releases, and it's really, really good. In fact, I'm beginning to think I should have put it much higher on my list. This has a stunning soundtrack, and in my opinion, a much better game than the other versions. So go on, go off and attack those naughty chickens and save the day, you and your nuts. Right, okay, we're on to number 71, and it's Base Jumpers, released in 1995 by Rasputin Software and developed by Shadow Software. This is a really interesting platformer in 2 parts. Now, first is a multiplayer race to the top, dodging all the security guards and systems, and once you get to the top, you hurl yourself off the building and you have to dodge all the things that might hit you on the way down to be the first to hit the bottom. It's a lot of fun, particularly in multiplayer, and it's another unique one to the Amiga. It's another one well worthy of a play. Right, we're on to number 70, and it's Naughty Ones. This came out in 1994 by Interact Vision and developed by Melon Design. Yes, it's another one by them. This is a really nice old school flick screen platformer, and the graphics are wonderful, the music is twee, it's got nice gameplay. I just love these flick screen platformers from were more prevalent in the 8-bit era, and this is no different. It's a guilty pleasure. Right, we're doing really well, and we're on 69, baby, with James Pond 3 Operation Starfish. This came out in 1994 by Millennium and developed by Vector Dean. And it's the James Pond third platforming adventure. I mean, of course, you had the spin-off Olympics game as well that was separate to that. Now, on its release, this was a real disappointment. I mean, it's got badly designed levels and very similar levels. Everything's on cheese-like planets. It was clearly built with a Mega Drive version as the original, and the Amiga was a port of that. And it was a real shame after the wonderment of the first two games. So, I mean, what we're left here is a pretty lackluster game, but it's good enough to make our list. I mean, even a bad James Bond game is still well worthy of the top 100 list. It's worthy of your time. Right, we're on to number 68, and it is Soccer Kid. This came out in 1993 by Chrysalis and developed in-house by them. What you have here, aliens have stolen the World Cup, and it's up to you and your trusty football to kick your way to victory. Gorgeous graphics and music. The reason it's probably lower on my list, I do find the football as a weapon can be overly cumbersome, and that's why it's not higher. I find that sometimes you're fighting the kick mechanic a little bit to get further in the game. Okay, we're on number 67 now, and this is Gym Power in the Mutant Planet. It came out in 1982 by Loricel, and it was developed in-house. Now, this has beautiful visuals and music by Chris Hulsbeck, yes, he of Turrican fame and Apidia, and there's a lot to love here as well, beyond the music. I mean, the gameplay is actually quite fun. I mean, it does let it down, being a bit clunky and insta-deaths at times, but I still enjoy this fantastic platforming romp nevertheless, and well worthy of your time. Okay, we're on to number 66, and it's Titus the Fox, released in 1992 by Titus and developed in-house. Now, this was originally a different game, but Titus brought their mascot into a platforming adventure across 14 levels across from Marrakesh and back again, and you could argue it's by the number platformer, but it's got a lot of heart and great graphics, and yeah, I have a lot of time for this game. It makes me smile. Okay, we're on number 65 now, and it is Flink. This came out in 1995 by Psygnosis and developed in-house. Now, any game with more beautiful art from Henk Nierberg, now he's gone on to do things like Xenocrisis and the Tiny Thor games, but he was huge on the Amiga as well. Come to some of his games there. It's one of the best pixel artists on the planet, in my opinion. On to the game though. I mean, this is a good physics-based platformer. It's got some physics-based puzzles in it and great music. I mean, probably on the Amiga at least, the CD32 version is the best one to play, but you can play it on, I think it's also on the Mega CD as well. It's a charming game and well worth giving it a go. Right, we're on to number 64, and it's this is one that's probably will have people screaming it's not higher up the list. It is Second Samurai. This came out in 1993 by Psygnosis and developed by Vivid Image. It's an enjoyable sequel, and it adds more effects and graphical whizziness to it all. I mean, they knew what they were doing when they make this game. And this gives two-player mode, although it doesn't really quite work. It's loved by a lot of people. In fact, you know, on our top 50 Amiga book, I think it made number 40 with, you know, First Samurai and Second Samurai, etc. It's loved by many, but I'm just not one of them. I find it's got too many sound effects, and whilst it's accomplished, it's just one that I just get frustrated with. But that's me. I mean, for the average person, this will probably be much higher up their list. Okay, we're on to number 63, and it is Liquid Kids, released in 1991 by Ocean and developed by their in-house team in France, Ocean France. Now, actually, this was an unreleased game by Ocean, as they didn't feel it was accurate enough to the arcade original, and so they decided to can it. It's a real shame because it plays very solidly, and even if the arcade game it's based on isn't my favourite, favourite. It's worthy of your time. I mean, it's a good port. I'm quite surprised Ocean did can it. Maybe it had trouble with the licence as well. Okay, we're on to number 62, and this is Mega Twins, or the Cheeky Cheeky Boys as it was known in Japan, of the arcade game it's based, and it came out in 1991. It's published by US Gold, and it's developed by Twilight. Yes, they are Chicken fame, etc. Now what we have here is a really impressive arcade port of that Capcom arcade classic, as I mentioned, like the Cheeky Cheeky Boys, and the game is very faithful to that arcade original. It's a great home port, and thus one well worthy of you playing. So that's why it made my list. Okay, we're on to number 61, and we got another arcade port. Could be argued that it's shooter more than a platformer, but it's difficult to know where to draw the line. It is Midnight Resistance. This came out in 1990 by Ocean and was developed by Special FX, who did an amazing job of bringing this arcade classic. And what do you have here? You have a great two-player run and gun shooter platformer, and I personally actually prefer it on the Amiga because you'd have to do that dial control. I'm just not very good at doing the dial control whilst you play. The struggle with the 1989 Data East arcade game. But, this is a worthy run and gun blaster and well worthy of your time. Right, okay, we're on to number 60. We've made it to 60 already, and it's 1992, developed by Ocean and published by Ocean. It is Lethal Weapon. Yes, another movie tie-in. Now, this is a very cookie-cutter platformer, if I'm honest. It doesn't do anything special, but I really enjoy it. It's obviously based across the Lethal Weapon films, but it has the fantastic music of Barry Leach, which really elevates it and makes it one of the most fun movie tie-ins on the Amiga. Okay, we're on to 59 now, and it is Elvira, the arcade game. Now, of course, this came out in 1991 by Flare Software and developed in-house. Now, of course, Elvira saw some fantastic RPG games as well, but the platformer is actually really, really good. It's not based on a particular film per se, but I just have a real spot for it, and it could be for her attire, and I love Elvira, so that's great from that point. But it's a really fun little platform adventure with great graphics and music. It's just one that I've got a real soft spot for, and well worthy of your time. Okay, we're on number 58 now, and it is a myth. History in the Making. Came out in 1992 and published by System 3 and developed in-house. I think this is brilliant on the Amiga. It's got some great effects. It's all the full-on mythological creatures you encounter. I mean, it feels like you're playing a platform version of Jason and the Argonauts. You make your way through ancient Greece, Egypt, and the Vikings as well. It's not just Greek mythology. And, you just have to defeat bad monsters and make your way through. I mean, I love the graphical touches of this game, and it's one that's really grown on me as I've played it more and more. Okay, we're on number 57, and it is Bonanza Brothers. This came out in 1991, published by US Gold and developed by Synergy. Of course, it's based on the unique two-player 1989 Sega arcade game of the same name. You play as two thieves who must carry out heists. The Amiga captures the stylized gameplay and graphics and sounds perfectly, making this as a real solid fun port. Like the arcade original though, I do find it gets a little bit samey as you progress. Okay, so number 56 is Assassin. This came out in 1992 and was published by Team 17 and developed by Psyonix. Team 17's answer to Strider, basically. It's not a patch on the arcade original, but it's certainly miles better than the official Strider port that we got on the Amiga. Now, there's two versions. I've decided to include them. They released a special edition, which was on the budget label, came out in 1994. This changes the look of the hero era made the game a lot easier. It's the one that I personally prefer, but I know a lot of people prefer the original and the hardness of the original above the reimagining special edition. So horses for courses. For me, either one deserves a spot at number 56. Okay, we're on to number 55, and this is a unique one with Monster Business. It came out in 1991 and published by Ascon and developed by Eclipse. Now this is another hidden gem, unless of course you were a reader of the top 100 list on Amiga Power, as Stuart Campbell's got a real thing for this game. He loves it. But what is the game? Imagine Bubble Bobble, but instead you run around and you inflate the monsters and they float off like little balloons and you pop them. It's a great game. It never gets talked about today, and I think it's a real shame. It's one well worthy of tracking down. Okay, we're on to number 54, and this is one that probably will have a lot of people frustrated it appears so low. It is Switchblade, 1989, and published by Gremlin and developed by Core Design. Now, this is the original Simon Phipps Switchblade game. I'm a bigger fan of the sequel that was done by another team, but this is basically like Rick's Dangerous in Space, and it's got interesting visuals, and I love the music, and I love the gameplay. The reason it's probably lower down for me, I find it gets quite samey as you play through. There's not any variety to levels, but also has this annoying control mechanic where you have to hold down the fire button to do a harder punch. It's just counterintuitive when you're playing platform games. It's just extra faff, and you really need to do harder punches and time with the enemy because your standard punch does such little damage. But still, it's a fun game and well worthy your time. Right, we're coming on leaps and bounds here, and my word, we're on 53, and James Pond Underworld Agent is what I've chosen, released in 1990, published by Millennium and developed by Vector Dean. I think a lot of people will be spitting feathers that I've put it so low. I mean, this was the one that introduced the world to James Pond. You're a fish with a mission to save the world from ecological disaster. The game's colourful and fun, it's got loads of ideas and thoughts. I do love it, actually. I do have a lot of time for this game. I guess just the quality of the list, for me personally, my personal memories made it go as low as it did. It is a personal list, as I mentioned. Okay, we're on to number 52, and it is Prehistoric. This came out in 1993 and was published by Titus and developed in-house. Now, this will have a lot of people scratching their heads, particularly that I put it above things like James Pond and Switchblade, but I just love this game. It's nostalgia, I realise, but you just play a caveman who must go around the neighbourhood bashing the poor creatures over the head with your club and get enough food, and you get the game. It's just simple, endearing, and I really appreciate its guilty pleasure of mine, but I'm just always charmed by this game. It's one that I always go back to. Right, we're up to 51 already, and this is Lionheart. It came out in 1993 by Thylon and developed in-house, and this is actually a stunning game. I mean, it's got the amazing artwork of Henk Nierberg, yes, you know, he of Xenocrisis and Tiny Thor fame, and it's a real hidden gem. I mean, it only appeared on the Amiga. It looks amazing. The reason it's lower on the list, it does have a initially counterintuitive control scheme where you have to press the button and then choose a joystick direction for the type of attack. It does, when you get used to it, it actually gives you a lot more power on the single joystick to do a wide variety of moves. I mean, if you master it, it's great, but it will put a lot of people off. But yeah, I love it. I mean, it's just the control scheme that probably lets it down. I mean, if you forget to do both controls, you're constantly losing health, and it's frustrating. But no, I think this is genuinely one of the Amiga bests, and if it wasn't for that control scheme, if they used a standard control scheme, this would probably be in my top 10 at least. Right, we're on to number 50, and this is Trolls. Came out in 1992 by Flare and developed in-house by them. This stars those creepy troll toys that my sister used to collect when I was growing up, and it's another Amiga platformer, but it throws so many colours. I mean, it really uses like every colour on the Amiga palette that it can do at once. and it's got amazing music as well. It's a fun game. I mean, although it's using the same engine as Oscar, which was essentially like the second game came out, this has much better level design really, and therefore a lot more fun. Definitely one well worthy of playing. Right, we're on to number 49 already. We're rattling through, and this is Hudson Hawk, released in 1991, published by Ocean, and developed by Special Effects. And this is based on that huge flop of a film starring Bruce Willis about a cat burglar doing one last job. But forget this, I mean, it could be any platform. I mean, you wouldn't really know it's Hudson Hawk if you hadn't seen the title. It's essentially just a solid platformer. It's got great humour and characterizations to everything. I'm sure it's got little to do with the actual film, but it's competent, and I just have a lot of time for this game. It's one I always go back to and give a playthrough. Right, we're on to number 48, and this is Deliverance. This came out in 1992 and was published by 21st Century Entertainment and developed by DeviantArt. This is a little known sequel to the game Stormlord. A lot of people don't realise that this is a sequel to it, and it has you play like the original, a big and burly Viking, and you run around rescuing fairies as you do. It isn't as good as Gods in my opinion, although there's even some of the hosts on RGDS feel counter to that, but it does have nice graphics, and once you get used to those rigid controls it can be a lot of fun. I mean, it's definitely well worthy of your time. Right, we're on to number 47 now, and I've chosen Quack. This came out in 1993 and was published by Team 17 and developed in-house. Now, this was a budget game only, and it has you play a cute duck, you run around, you collect keys, you open up the door. It's simple arcade fun, but this is done to perfection, and it's just so addictive, and I was so pleased that it appeared on the Amiga Mini by default, so a lot of more people get to enjoy this classic platformer game. Right, we're on to number 46 now, and it is Alien Fish Finger, released in 1995. It's a shareware game and developed by Skull Army. Now, looking at the graphics and the name, you probably thought I've gone simply mad here, but trust me, this shareware game that only costs £4 back in the day is one of the best games on the Amiga. In fact, I'm beginning to wonder why I haven't put it higher. It's a really fun run and gun platformer, and it just needs to be played by more. It's just got so much characterization to the little characters, great gameplay, and yeah, just one well worthy of your time in going back to. Right, okay, so we're on to number 45, and I've gone for Blues Brothers. This came out in 1991 by Titus and developed in-house, and it's of course based on the film The Blues Brothers, that classic 80s film that is so much fun. What is great with this is not only do you get to play Jake and Elwood, the two shade-wearing cool guys from the film, but you also get full chip renditions of all the movie's soundtrack. I mean, it's lovely, but it is a fun game to play as well. I love the characterizations, the depth, and just as an overall package, it's one that I keep going back to, so well worthy of your time. Okay, we're on to number 44, and this is Cool Spot. This came out in 1993 and published by Virgin and developed in-house by them. It's another Virgin game by Dave Perry, who of course went on to do Shiny Entertainment and certain games like Earthworm Jim, etc. And of course he did the Aladdin port as well at this time on Mega Drive. And this is based on the red spot on the 7-Up drink. I mean, it's seriously, it's a mad licensing idea to license the red spot on 7-Up, but that's what they did. But it's really quite a good port. I mean, it's still much better on the Mega Drive versions, but John Twiddy of Last Ninja fame does a great port of this on the Amiga. The reason it's lower down on my list, much as I love the opening levels, I do find as a game they put all the best levels at the beginning, and then it gets not as good as it goes on. That's the same with the console versions, which for me, stops it being more of a classic, really. Okay, we're on to number 43, and it's another licensed game. This is Global Gladiators. It came out in 1993 and was published by Virgin and developed in-house by them. This is converted from the Mega Drive version by Dave Perry, yes, Shiny Entertainment again, and this time you play Mick and Mac. They're two characters at McDonald's tried to hoof and, you know, be all down with the kids. But, you know, it's loosely a McDonald's themed adventure, I guess. There's little arches that you can pick up, but it's really quite good. I mean, you go around, you're an ecological warrior, destroying slime that's taking over the world and stopping them cut down rainforests to make cheap burgers, you know. Oh no, I've added that, I'm sure that's not the case. No, McDonald's is clearly an ecological warrior company, but I just really like it. I mean, a special note should go to Tommy Tallarico, who did the original tunes, but Andrew Barnabas, who did the music for Swiv, I mean, he's done a fantastic recreation of those, to the point where actually many I prefer, you know, hearing these sounds come from the Amiga over the Mega Drive original. They're just simply awesome. I mean, it's a fun platformer game and well worthy of your time. Okay, we're on number 42 already, and this is Kid Chaos. This came out in 1994 by Ocean and was developed by Magnetic Fields. Yes, the team behind the Lotus games and Supercars and so much more. But it's nice to see what they could do with a platformer, and they really show what they could do with them here, with a polished game that's super fast. I mean, this was the era where everybody was trying to do speed because of Sonic. In many ways, like many of those platform games, it runs too fast. That's probably one of the downsides of it. This is still a great Amiga title with amazing techno dance music. I just really like this one and well worthy of your time. Right, we're up to number 41 and we have Rick Dangerous. This came out in 1989 by Firebird and was developed by Core Design. In the first game, Rick is basically Indiana Jones, and you try to escape the tomb by going through and escaping the Kulu tribe. It's full of Nazis and all that you would expect from Indiana Jones. It probably the reason it's lower on my list, as much as I love it, the trial and error nature of the game, the ways of instant death after instant death, makes it annoying at times, but this is still a fantastic game, and so therefore it had to be on my list. But controversial, I know, number 40 is the sequel, Rick Dangerous 2. This came out in 1990 and was published by Microstyle and was developed by Core Design again. Of course, it's done by Simon Phipps, but this time he's replaced the Indy Jones setup instead for Flash Gordon. Yes, hapless hero of Rick Dangerous is off to save the world from an alien invasion. For me, and it's controversial, I know, but I prefer the sequel over the original. I find the difficulty curve and the unfair deaths is smoothed out a bit, and therefore it's just more of an engaging game. It could be also I did come to Rick Dangerous 2 before I came to Rick Dangerous back in the day, so maybe it's just simply the one that I have nostalgic memories of. Okay, we're on to number 39. We're really getting through this list. It is Leander. This is fantastic. It came out in 1991 by Psygnosis, and it's another Traveller's Tales game. Yes, the people who did those fantastic Lego games. This is really fun. It's a great platformer. Okay, it lacks a bit of variety between the levels and gets a little samey. That's probably why it's this low down, but it's a really polished and fun affair, well worthy of your time. Okay, we're on to number 38, and I've chosen Kid Gloves. This came out in 1990 and was published by Millennium and developed in-house by them. Now, there's just something very charming about this 8-bit style flick screen platformer. It's a platformer of a 8-bit era on the 16-bit, and whilst it uses lots of audio clips, insane amount of colours, perhaps overuse of colours, I just really enjoy this game. And of course, the fact that it was given away on the, well, it was originally a full price game, but it was given away on issue 2 of Amiga Power, which was a big deal to get full games, because there was until that time there was a written agreement with magazines not to give full games after it went a bit crazy on the Spectrum and C64 era. But yeah, ever since I've always loved playing Kid Gloves. It still holds up, and one that I enjoy today. Right, we're on to number 37, and it's Brian the Lion. It came out in 1994, and it was published by Psygnosis and developed by Reflections. Yes, Reflections, who went on to do the, well, Shadow of the Beast, and of course, had done Shadow of the Beast games, and of course went on to do games like Driver and Demolition Derby and things like that. So yeah, great development house. But what you have here is a cute, cuddly lion going on an adventure to rescue his kidnapped chum. It's really technically impressive. There's loads of parallax scrolling. Sometimes it feels like you're not moving a little bit because they've not put enough objects near you to give you that sense of movement in certain sections. And I'd probably also argue it's also a bit floaty, the jump. It's not, could do with just a little bit honing and touching up. But I love this game. I mean, it's still a huge achievement on the Amiga and well worthy of your time. Right, we're on to number 36, and I've chosen Bubble and Squeak. This came out in 1994 and is another audiogenic published game and developed in-house. Now, it's got terrible box art that probably would have put a lot of people away from the game, but what you have here is a sweet platformer about Charlie Brown looking kid and his blue alien buddy as you sort of make your way through. I mean, I'd really suggest play the CD32 version. The music's on the CD track in particular is stunning. It did get versions on the SNES and some of the consoles, but I think the CD32 version in particular is the one to play. Right, we're up to the next one, and it is 35 and not the Apprentice. This came out in 1990 by Rainbow Arts and developed in-house. And here you play a wizard who can pick up blocks and throw them. Not particularly magical, I guess you could say, but it's just a twee hidden gem. It's one that nobody ever thinks of or plays, and I really like it. And it, of course, helps that it has the music of Chris Schulzbeck of Turrican and Apidia fame, giving his wares again, so well worthy of your time. Okay, I'm going to cheat a little bit here, but I really wanted to insert another game here that I've only recently come to appreciate. So therefore I'm going to do a 35A. I'm going to squeeze one in between 35 and 34. And what it is Joe Beat the Ghosts. This came out in 1993 and was published by Hudson Soft and Blue Byte Software and developed by Scipio. And my word, originally, I've got to be honest, it wasn't on my list, but that's because I just didn't have the nostalgic memories and I hadn't played it enough. But I've discovered since that this game is friggin' amazing. It's so good. You play a graffiti artist, Joe and Nat, and you play sort of like an Elvis looking Joe character who must sort of like jump, crawl and kick and slide and swim his way through all the levels and rescue and save the world or whatever you're supposed to do against Professor X. And you can also play as 2-player with taking on Nat as you make your way through. I've come to really appreciate this. I mean, the graphical style put me off a little bit when I was growing up, but coming back to it, it's really, really good, and that's why I just had to include it here. Please, give this game a go. So really, guys and boys and girls, we've got 101 games on this list, but hey ho, it's not about the numbers, it's about playing fantastic platformer games. Okay, let's go on to number 34, and it is First Samurai. This came out in 1991 by Imageworks and developed by Vivid Image. This is another one that I'm just not as big a fan as other people of these games. Other RGDS hosts absolutely adore it. I mean, of course, it's done by Raphael Checo of Cybernoid and Stormlord and all those great games. And you know, he really can make the Amiga sing, and just show so many effects. There's so many clever things going on with this. I think the thing, as I mentioned with the sequel, the thing that puts me off is the overuse of sound effects. But I will admit that when we did a combined list, this did make number 40 on our top 50 list of all games. So that's how much others like it, because that was like choosing against all games of any genre. That's how much sort of Kingy and Rick like the game. Right, okay, let's go on to number 33, and I've gone for The New Zealand Story. It came out in 1989, published by Ocean and developed by Choice. This is another top Taito Ocean arcade conversion, and like the arcade original, you play Tiki, the Kiwi who must save his friends from the evil walrus leopard seal. Yeah, it's just pretty much arcade perfect of a very good Taito game. I mean, it's lower on the list because I don't actually like it. Personally, I don't get on with the arcade game that much, but this is undeniably a fantastic platformer and well worthy of the list. Right, we're on number 32. We really are coming down the list here. And for 32, I've chosen Wonder Dog. This came out in 1993 and developed by Core and published by Core Design. You know, I just have a soft spot for Core platformers, and yeah, I admit this isn't their best, and I can imagine loads of people spitting feathers that it's so high on the list, but I just have fond memories with this. I mean, I love the music soundtrack. It just plays fun, if basic. I just love the characterizations that the artist did for these Core Design games. I will say it's actually better on the Mega CD. They do a remastered CD soundtrack, and you know, that's really where I would suggest to play it these days, but that is the best version. But no, it's a great version, and I'm happy that it made so high on my list. Number 31 is Zool, Ninja of the Ninth Dimension. This came out in 1992 and was published by Gremlin and developed in-house. Now, the alien ant, I think he's an ant, that Gremlin tried to concoct in the early 90s was their attempt to be a rival to Sonic. I mean, according to them at least. I mean, the game was so colourful and fast, and it just made your eyes bleed out your ears. I mean, it was that much visual craziness going on. But it is a fun platformer, and it's got that over speed. It's probably too quick for its own good for the size of the screen. This was just very common at the time, where everybody on the Amiga was trying to prove how the Amiga could run faster than Sonic, not really thinking that actually should they be running faster than Sonic and concentrate on the gameplay. It did have a CD32 version and the AGA versions, which made it even more colourful if you needed that, and has CD remastered soundtracks of the tunes, so that's probably one of the better ways of playing it, really. It has recently been released as Zool Redimensioned as well, which actually zooms out the action to makes it far more playable, but not quite as visually splendid, but well worthy of your time. Wow, I can't believe we're on number 30 already, and it is Alfred Chicken, released in 1993 by Mindscape and developed by Twilight. I've got a lot of time for this. It's a fun platformer where you play a chicken. He looks more like the Mr. Cadbury's parrot mascot from the Cadbury's eggs, but it's bright and colourful, and yeah, I mean, you could argue it's by the numbers, but it's put together so solidly and with so much fun and great music that you just can't help but love the game. Right, we're on number 29, and this will surprise a lot of people, but it's a nostalgic list and a nostalgic choice for me. It is ScoobyDoo and Scrappy Doo. This came out in 1991 by High Tech and was developed in-house. Yes, it's another one of these budget releases. And, I mean, once you get past the crushing disappointment like I did that Scooby-Doo doesn't really appear, he only appears in the name. In fact, you're playing Scrappy-Doo, which is the one that everybody didn't like, the little yappy dog. And, once you go past that, you're just won over by the great graphics, the amazing in-game tune. It's just so catchy, one of my favourite Amiga tunes. And, you've got to remember, it's a budget game. I mean, it's cookie cutter platformer, but it's still loads of fun. I really rate this game, and that's why, for me personally, it's so high on my list. Right, we're on to number 28, and we have Magic Pockets. This came out in 1991 by Renegade and was developed by the Bitmap Brothers. Yes, they of God's Speedball 2 fame. So this is a Bitmap Brothers platform game. And it's a strange one with, the character kind of looks like how a dad would design a cool kid in the 90s. He's got the baseball hat and the bitmap shades, and, it's a little cringy from that point of view. And it's sort of offset by because the Bitmap Brothers weren't known for cute graphics, so it's got that dark sort of like graphics, which, may put people off, but this is still great. It's got the amazing rendition of the title music from Betty Boo doing the Do, which was a hit track back in the day, and it's a fun platform game. You basically play the Bitmap kid, and you put your hand in your pocket and your pocket grows, and you send out little tornadoes basically, and that's how you capture the enemies and kill them. I have a lot of time for it. I think it's a really, really fun game. Right, what are we up to now? We're up to number 27, and this is one that I really adore. It is Shadow of the Beast 3. This came out in 1992 by Psygnosis and is developed by Reflections, who of course did all the Shadow of the Beast games, and as I mentioned went on to do Driver and Demolition Derby, etc. on the PS1. This is the third in the series, and it's by far the best, and it's a real shame because the first two games were basically style over substance, that a lot of people look the other way with this game because it doesn't look as visually impressive. But gameplay wise, this is really good. It's got very clever physics based puzzles, and it's just a shame that loads of people looked away from this gem. On our top 50 we put it as number 25, so that's how much we love it. And it's well worth your time. It's got amazing music still. The graphics are still pretty good. It just didn't have the visual splendour of the first two games, but that was because playability wise is what they concentrated on, and it's all the better for it. Right, we're on to number 26, and I've chosen Zool 2. This came out in 1993 by Gremlin and was developed again by the Warp Factory, and it's the sequel to Zool, obviously, and this time you play not just the aliens Ant Zool, but you have a girl alien ant called Zeus. Now she can jump higher, and it allows you to get to different parts of the platform. This is actually a much better game than the first. Better level design, better variety, and better gaming balance, really. I mean, it's one that I definitely adore. Amazing music again, of course, and this again appeared on the CD32, so if you want to hear the remastered soundtracks as you play, that's probably a great way to play this game today. Right, we're on to 25. We're in the final quarter, and it is Toki. This came out in 1991 and was published by Ocean and developed by Ocean France, their in-house division. It did so many fantastic arcade conversions, and this is no exception. It is a brilliant rendition of the platform arcade original by the Tad Corporation about a spitting monkey. It's one of my fave Amiga platform games, as you can see, but also arcade platform games. I just love the quirky charm of it, and playing through, it's really, really good. Right, we're on to number 24, and we have Parasol Stars, The Story of Rainbow Islands 2. This came out in 1992 by Ocean and developed in-house by them. And Tato's sequel that never really appeared on the arcades. It's the sequel to Rainbow Islands, but it only came out in the home consoles. Originally it came out on the PC Engine, and later on the NES and a few other places. But I think, along with the PC Engine, the Amiga version is the best version of this to play. Now, this time the gameplay is closer to Bubble Bobble. You're using a magic umbrella, a parasol if you will, and you basically pick up and hurl the enemies this time. I just think the Ocean port of this is the best out there, and it's a worthy addition to the Amiga library with fantastic music and gameplay. On our top 50 for RGDS, this appeared in number 28. That's how much we rate this. Okay, we're on number 23, and this is one that I've come to appreciate more as time's gone on. It's called Flood, and it came out in 1990 by Electronic Arts and was developed by Bullfrog, and the guy who did Syndicate, of all things. You know, Bullfrog's only entry in the platform genre, and it's really quite good. You play Quiffy, essentially he's a sewer womble, for want of a better description, and you are armed to the teeth. You can see the guy, you know, how he went on to do Syndicate, because he's still got that sort of like heavy armament and explosions in this game. But I've come to really appreciate this. You get to climb walls, and you essentially find all the things strewn around. It's just a unique platformer, and yeah, well worthy of the time. I mean, Kingy absolutely adores this. I mean, he absolutely insisted this appeared on our top 50. We put it on number 49, I believe. I can see why. It's a really good platform game, and that's why I'm glad it appeared here. Okay, we're on to number 22, and this is another amazing platform game. Well, I guess they're all going to be amazing at this point. It is BC Kid. Yes, it's the Amiga port of Bonk's Adventure, and it's really, really good. It's, of course, came out in 1992, published by Ubisoft and developed by Factor 5, yes, they of Turrican on the 16 bits, and of course they went on to do all those fantastic games on the N64, like Rogue Squadron and that series, you know, the Star Wars games. But what do we have here? It's just a really good version of the first Bonk game. You've got remixed soundtracks, the gameplay and visuals look great, to the point where I feel that this is the best version of Bonk, the first game to play, and it's a real shame we never ever saw the sequels to Bonk appear. And to give us an idea how much we enjoy this, on the RGDS top 40, or top 50, we put it as number 31 on the game list. So, you know, it's a great title, and definitely deserves to be this high up on the list. Okay, we're on to number 21, and it is Chuck Rock, released in 1991 by Core Design and developed in-house by them. Here you play a caveman off to save his girlfriend from the evil Gary Gritter. How little did they know at the time how evil. And this is another core platformer classic, chock full of humorous creatures and rocking music. I adore this game. I will say, play the game today. The Mega CD version is actually the best version to play. The reason is, the Amiga, you can choose either the music or the sound effects. Obviously on the Mega CD version, you can play both. And also, the Amiga port does have like the more scantily clad cave women and like the dinosaur poos that can hit you, which Sega decided to take out. But it is the best way to play it really today. But I have got a lot of memories of Chuck Rock, and had to be on my list here. Okay, we're on number 20, and it's the Great Yana Sisters. This came out in 1988, was published by US Gold and developed by Time Warp. Now, it's famous for being pulled shortly after release, when Nintendo saw the rather striking similarities to a certain Plumber and Super Mario Bros. Game. I mean, it even has the same layouts and the levels. It's shocking why they thought they could get away with it. But it does have, therefore, it's an amazing, as we didn't get Super Mario Brothers, this is a great version of it. And to make it even better, it has the fantastic music of Chris Hulsbeck again, and it just makes it such an important, compelling game to play on the Amiga. Right, we're up to number 19, and it is Bubba and Sticks, released in 1994 by Core Design and developed in-house. This is a puzzle platformer where you play Bubba with his trusty alien side stick, who looks like a stick, and goes on an alien quest to rescue all the aliens dotted around. As I mentioned, it's made by Simon Phipps, Rick Dangerous, Switchblade and Wolfchild, and it has hilarious gameplay, puzzle elements and lots of cool humorous animations. But what's particularly great is all the ways that you can use the sticks to do a variety of actions to solve the puzzles. It's a lot of fun. Dare I say, it's more fun than you can shake a stick at. Okay, I'll stop now. Right, we're up to number 18, and it is Arabian Nights. This came out in 1993 by Chrysalis and was developed in-house by them. Here you play Sinbad Jr., who must rescue the princess. It has Dizzy-like puzzles and solid platform gameplay, and this for me is a real classic for the Amiga. Also has a rather snazzy flying carpet shooting level section as well, so there's a lot to love here. Right, we're on to number 17, and it is Turrican 3. This came out in 1993 by Renegade and was developed by Factor 5, the great guys, the great German development house, and we all know and love. Now, the third one's often been criticised for being too different to the first two, whereas the first two are sprawling, more open levels. This is more focused designs, going simply left to right typically. It's known as Mega Turrican on the Mega Drive, and this is great on the Amiga. It shows lots of whizzy effects and really pushes the Amiga to the edge. It has, in my opinion, the best overall soundtrack of Chris Hulsbeck as well, and it's only the later HR Giga levels that let things down. Again, this made number 36 on our list where we covered all the Turrican games for the top 40, so it's a great way to learn more, but I love this game. Okay, we're on number 16, and the next one is Turrican. Yes, it's the first in the series. It came out in 1990, published by Rainbow Arts and developed by Factor 5. And this is the 16-bit Factor 5 port of Turrican, and it's simply wondrous. Not only did they perfectly capture the C64 sprawling levels and fast, frantic gameplay, but if that wasn't enough, they had the amazing music of Chris. His soundtrack is amazing. It's some of the best of any gaming soundtrack out there, and it makes it a must-play for Amiga owners. Now, it is a run-and-gun. You could argue whether it's a platformer or not, but for me, it's a platform game where you shoot. So that's why I've included it here. Okay, we're on number 15, and for that I've chosen Chuck Rock 2, The Son of Chuck. Yes, it's the sequel to Chuck Rock, and I actually prefer the sequel over the original, controversial I know. Now, I adore this core platform design game that came out in 1993, and this time you play the baby, Chuck Rock Jr., and he has to save his dad. I really like the sequel. It has lots of technical wizardry going on over the first, and the amazing soundtrack. The CD32 soundtrack is particularly worthy of mention, but like the first one, the best version out there to play, in my opinion, is the Mega CD version. So if you get a chance, try that version instead. Okay, we're on to number 14, and it is Gods, released in 1991 by Renegade and developed by the Bitmap Brothers. I love this platformer where you take a Hercules character and you go on a challenge to become a god yourself. It's got beautiful graphics and solid gameplay, and it's one of my favourite Amiga games of all time. I mean, this is number 24 on RGDS Top 50 Amiga Games of all time. Admittedly, I had a big part in upping that score. I mean, I'm probably more of a fan than the other hosts, but I think Gods is fantastic. The only criticism I perhaps say is it is a bit similar, the levels, there's not enough variety as you would ideally like. Right, we're up to number 13, and it is The Addams Family, released in 1992 by Ocean and developed in-house by them. Now, this is hands down Ocean's best film license, I think, and it's definitely this. It's a really good Mario-inspired, varied platformer with a wonderful cast of characters and enemies that you come across, and it really was the Amiga's answer to Mario 3. I mean, obviously, it's got the European design rather than the honed skills of the Mario classics, but I still adore it, and it was certainly one of the best platformers on the Amiga. Now we come on to number 12, and it is Bubble Bubble. It came out in 1988 by Firebird, and it was made by Software Creations. And this feels almost arcade perfect. I mean, considering it came out in 1988, only a few years after the arcade classic of 1986, this is a brilliant conversion. It's done all about two bubble-blowing dinosaurs, two little kids, Bub and Bob, and bizarrely, the evil wizard that, well, basically, he turns you into bubble-blowing dinosaurs, as you do, don't you know, and it gives you a fighting chance, I guess, to go through the 100 of levels, and yeah, it's a real classic, and one that I come to again and again. Now, there is Tiny Bobble, which is a homebrew version that came out in 2020, which is even more closer to the original, but to be honest, the first one's so darn good, it always seemed a little bit pointless to me to do Tiny Bobble. Okay, we're on to number 11. Wow, we're nearly there, and it is Rough and Tumble. This came out in 1994 by Renegade and developed by Wonderkind, and this is another hidden gem on the Amiga. I mean, it needs to be played by more. It looks stunning. I mean, you're actually pinching yourself. Is this really running on a standard A500 Amiga? It really doesn't look it. It's a frantic run and gun platformer. It's just simply breathtaking musically and visually in particular. We put it as number 23 on our top 50 RGDS games of all time, so you can see why we rate it so highly. Try this because a lot of people just skipped over it and missed out on this classic. Okay, we're on the final 10, and number 10 is Harlequin, released in 1992 by Gremlin and developed by Warp Factory, who of course went on to do Zool 2. This is delightfully weird and original. It's such a strange platformer as you go around as a sort of Harlequin character, like a jester, and you go around this strange world to bring love to the world, shooting your love everywhere. And sure, I mean, it's got some really tough old school jumps where one fall and you've got to do 100 more jumps again. It does frustrate, but it's just brilliant. It's unique to the Amiga and one that needs to be played by more. It also has an amazing soundtrack by Barry Leach as well, so just brilliant. I mean, we put it as number 26 on our top 50 Amiga games, so you can see how much love we have for this game. Okay, we go on to number 9 now, and it is Wolfchild. This came out in 1992 by Core Design and developed in-house. It's another Simon Phipps game, and he of Rick Dangerous, Switchblade, Bubba and Sticks fame, and this time mixes in Strider with a bit of Altered Beast. It combines loads of cool graphical tricks, and their cool mechanic as you sort of build up your character, you become more wolf-like and eventually werewolf, essentially, and makes you more indestructible. I mean, I adore this. It came out as number 44 on our top 50 RGDS Amiga games, and yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I actually rate this above. Like many of the other Core Design games, however, the best way to play it is on the Mega CD. It has more levels, it has an intro that goes deeper, and the fantastic CD version of the soundtrack, which is amazing on the Amiga, but obviously even better on the CD variant. So probably the best way to play it today. Okay, we're on number 8, and I've chosen Turrican 2: The Final Fight, released in 1991 by Rainbow Arts, and of course it's another Factor 5 developed game. Now this takes everything that made the original game great, but adds it, puts it up to number 11, and it's better in all ways. It's got better music, more interesting levels, more variety, and you just simply have one of the best run and gun platformers of all time. Now, we put it in position 36 when we did the RGDS top 50, and yeah, I totally agree. I mean, all the Turrican games deserve to be here, and you know, Chris Hulsbeck music is second to none. This is some of the best he's ever done, and that's saying something. Okay, we're on number 7, and I've chosen Super Frog. This came out in 1993 by Team 17 and developed in-house, and here Team 17 effortlessly, it seems, made one of the best platform games on the Amiga. Varied levels, good difficulty curve, amazing Alistair Brimble music, loads of humour. I mean, what's not to like? We put it as number 20 on the RGDS top 50. Check out those books if you can, and you can read more about them, as with many of these other games, on those free books. But let's go on to number 6, and I've chosen Rodland. This was published by Storm and developed by Random Access, and it's another arcade perfect gem of the arcade game, being a port of the obscure Jalico arcade game. This takes the idea idea of Bubble Bobble, but this time you play Rit and Tit, I think it is, two little fairies that must go around waving their wands around and saving their mum. It's fantastic. It is missing the secret game that's on the arcade, the pyramid levels, but wow, you can't fault it for that. It's amazing what they managed to squeeze in, really. Definite all-time classic. Okay, we're on number 5, our last 5 of the best, and we got some real amazing ones here. Number 5 is Rainbow Islands. This came out in 1990 and it was published by Ocean and developed by GlobDoel. Now, this game probably needs no introduction. It's an amazing arcade game and had amazing home ports everywhere, but the Amiga is probably the best one of all of them, really, until you got to the PS1 and Sega Saturn years later, but I'm talking about contemporary releases. And this is pretty much almost arcade perfect conversion by GlobDoel. It's missing some of the secrets, but let's be honest, how often are you going to discover those? And has all the levels, all the visuals, all the music. It's just perfect. We put it as number 28 when we did the RGDS top 50 Amiga games, and deservedly so. I think this is a fantastic game. Okay, we're on number 4, and this may surprise people that it's so high on my list. I just adore this game. It came out in 1991. It's done by Gremlin and developed in-house, but it isn't like the first one, a Simon Phipps game. It's done by completely different developers. And, with the sequel, they went for a much more of a console-looking game and much more sort of Metroid meets Strider than the original. This is just a special game to me. I mean, I do say that the opening levels are far better than the subsequent levels, but I just had to put it. It's one game I keep going back to. I adore it. I mean, it did make number 45 on our top 50 Amiga game list, and okay, that was probably more about me than the others, but I love this game. I love this game. Okay, we're on the final 3, and for number 3 we have Fire and Ice. This was published by Renegade in 1992 and developed by GlobDoel. It is a beautiful platformer about you rescuing baby coyotes and getting the pieces of a key to eventually get to the end. It's got fantastic music, lots of variety, beautiful gameplay and visuals. I also note that the CD32 version of this game with the CD32 soundtrack is stunning. We put it as number 15 on the RGDS top 50 Amiga games of all time, and yeah, that just shows how much collectively we all adore this game. Okay, we're on the final 2, and the second one, this is going to probably upset a lot of people or surprise a lot of people, but it's a personal list and a personal favourite. What is number 2? It is Woody's World. This came out in 1993 and was published by Acid and developed by Vision. I realise I talk about this game a lot on the channel, and it's because I think it is an amazing game, amazing hidden gem that many people don't know about on the Amiga, and it deserves to be shouted out. It is a polished Amiga platformer, amazing soundtrack, great visuals, great gameplay really, nice variety, chock full of secrets, and very console-esque in its design. For me, it genuinely is the second best platform game. I realise that's probably quite controversial, but for me it is. It's one that I've loved since day one of its release. But that brings us to number 1 of the top 100 platform games on the Amiga, and what a list it's been. But number 1 had to be James Bond 2, codenamed Robocod. Released in 1991 by Millennium and developed by Vectordine, this is simply the best the Amiga has to offer in platformers. It's got a massive game full of varied levels, amazing character designs, and just wonderful creatures to defeat. Just so many secrets, so many cool things at every turn that just keeps you playing to the end. I adore this game. It genuinely is by far the best platform game the Amiga had, and we put it as number 16 on our top 50 RGDS Amiga game list, so well worthy of picking this up. One thing to note, the PS1 and Switch variants and some of the later variants, they're all different designs. The 32-bit re-release of this that came out on PS1 and all the subsequent versions has a different soundtrack, CD version, and different platform levels and designs. That's not a bad game by all means, but it is different. So so it's up to you really, which I always get drawn to the original, but I'm quite happy to play the 32-bit version of it. So there you go, that was the top 100, well technically 101 platform games for the Amiga, and I'm pleased with this list for the most part. I think there's so many enjoyable games to try, and so many of these games were unique to the platform, and that's why I really wanted to do this video, to shout out to you boys and girls of some of these Amiga games that need to be played, especially as hopefully this year the Amiga Maxi is coming out, so that'll be another reason if you haven't bought the Amiga Mini. There's many ways to play these classic games, so please, you know, give these games a try, and as always, write in the comments what you would have chosen, what your top 100 or 10 games would be for platform games. I'd love to hear, and let me know any ones that you think I should have included that left off. I'd be the first to say there's an absolute ton more that I could have easily chosen. This is, even at 100, was a really tough list to choose from. Anyway, that will do for now, boys and girls, and until next time, keep it retro.